I'm going off brand and I'm telling my story. I'm telling my story in hopes that at least one person feels less alone. Growing up, I was emotionally and physically abused by a narcissistic parent. I will warn you, it is one of those stories that truly sounds unbelievable. Even when I share my story, I feel like I'm lying. From being institutionalized to spending my teen years in foster care and having my oldest son, Ryan, kidnapped. My children, my husband, and close friends are all aware of what happened in my childhood, so this is not new news to them. Okay, let's get into it. I was 10 and my sister was 5 when our parent told us our other parent was leaving. And they made sure we fully understood that the other parent had left because they had cheated. At 10 and 5, we didn't fully understand what cheating meant, but we were led to believe that meant the other parent did not love us. I remember shortly after finding out all of this, the parent who had moved out came over to visit with my sister and I, and we hadn't seen them in a long time. I remember it being a long time, and I remember them coming in the door, and I ran up to them to give a really big hug. I remember my other parent stood at the door, yelled at me, and told me not to touch my other parent because they had AIDS. I knew what AIDS was. It was 1998, and a movie had just come out with Tom Hanks about AIDS, and I was terrified to touch them. My parent, they didn't have AIDS. My other parent just wanted us to be afraid. In the grand scheme of my childhood, my parents' divorce was definitely the easiest part, but I am going to share the story so that there is no confusion when I share the rest of the story. Shortly after my parents had split up, I remember being called down to the office at my school. The office called my classroom over the PA system and asked if I could come down to the office. And I remember all of my peers were like, "Ooh, Krista's in trouble." And I remember being petrified. I went to the office and my parent was there, the one that I was still living with. And they said that we would be meeting with the principal and my teacher and another staff member. And I didn't understand why, but I remember my parent talking to me like I was in trouble, and I felt like I was in trouble. The principal, my teacher, I think maybe the vice principal, there was a lot of adults, and my parent, we walked into this big boardroom in my school, and I didn't even know this boardroom existed. I remember walking in and being like, "Oh, this is a big room. This looks serious." And I thought something was seriously wrong. My parent turned to me and said, "Well, Krista, do you want to tell them, or do you want me to tell them? Tell them about what's going on at home. Tell them, or I will." And the way that they spoke to me, it was like I had something to do with it. I remember it just being so stern and serious. And I looked at my teacher and the principal, and I said, "My parent cheated and they've moved out." And I remember breaking down into tears. I remember the look on every single one of the staff. I was only 10, but I still can picture the look of shock on their faces. And at the time, I thought their looks were from a place of anger towards my other parent. But now as an adult, looking back, the look of shock was from the specific situation that my parent had made me share something so unnecessary, and the specific details that I knew, it shocked them that I knew. I remember my teacher, he took me to the library. He quickly removed me from the situation, and we went into the library and we talked, and I remember I was just crying and crying because I felt more mortified than upset about my parents divorcing. I felt like I was in trouble. Over the next couple years during my parents' divorce, things became nasty. The parent that I lived with, they would make up blatant lies about the other parent and then lean on me to back up their lie. And if I ever stepped out of line and questioned what they were saying, I would be called a liar. My parent would act defensive and say that I didn't love them and that I was just looking for attention. Being the oldest of the two children, this parent would use me to back up their stories. And I was 10. I didn't know what to do. I thought I knew right from wrong, but this was a situation that if I backed my one parent, it meant I didn't love my other parent. If I backed my one parent, it meant that I was lying about my other parent. And it was just an overall horrible situation to be in. A couple years after my parents' divorce, my one parent who I lived with started dating. Someone moved in very quickly. And the only reason that I'm sharing this part of the story is because of what it led to. This person that had moved in with us, I had only met once or twice before. They were either an esthetician or a massage therapist. All I remember, they had something to do with, the body, but not being a medical professional. But my parent would have them explain why my body was changing. During this time, I believe I was in grade 7 at this point. Money was starting to go missing out of my parents' wallet. Every time money went missing, I was blamed. I would have been 12 at this point, and my sister would have been 6. Because my sister was only 6, at that point, she was not receiving any of the emotional or physical abuse and wasn't being blamed for things because she was just so little. Only a few short months after this person moved in, my parent and they broke up. This person moved out of our house. Only a few short months later after that, my parent had met somebody new, and they ultimately ended up moving in. This person that moved in had 2 daughters of their own. I remember the day this person asked my sister and I if they could propose to my parent. We were at Tim Hortons when they asked us, and I got very, very excited, and it didn't end well for me.